Hey guys, it's Krissy with the Windswept Cowboy, and today I am going to share with you my sanding basics. So, you're probably asking, why would you want to sand? I have a couple answers for you. Let's say your great Aunt Gertrude really wants to give you this awesome vintage console table, but it has seen better days. Like, it still looks like 1970, but how awesome would it be for you to be able to finish it? Or if you wanted to try your hand at making your own table with purchased lumber from a hardware store, or you have a piece that's been stuck in a corner or in your garage for years and you're ready right now to refinish it. Sanding is the first step in creating that piece that you envision. The importance of sanding is to remove the scratches and the gouges and even sometimes that ink stamp that the hardware store puts on their wood. You gotta sand to get all of that nice and smooth. You can do this by using a variety of sanding grits, sanding paper, and tools. So let me explain the grit number system to you. Every sandpaper is graded on a grit number. The lower the grit number, the more coarse your sandpaper is. The higher the grit number, the more fine it is. And you will definitely want to start with a lower grit number and work your way up to the finer number. The average homeowner will probably start with a grit about 60 or 80 and then finish off at 220. I generally do not go above the 220 grit number because it essentially polishes your wood and then it will not take the stain and have that nice dark stain color that you were wanting to achieve. You're going to want to use at least 3 different grit numbers, starting off with the coarser one and then ending up with your finest one. If your piece doesn't have a lot of gouges or scratches, you can just skip that first number and jump up to like a medium grit or even a finer grit, because why do all that work if you're just going to have to backtrack and then cover up those scratches and sand all those scratches back out. All right, let's talk about some sanding tools. The first one we're going to talk about is hand sanding. Your tools. The basics for that is just you and your sandpaper, and you will want to use your hand sanding techniques in like tight corners that you can't get your power tools or any other kind of tool up into those crevices. You're going to want to use your hand. The next one would be your sanding sponges, your sanding blocks, and steel wool. For those are really good to try to reach in those corners, but sometimes there's contours and you just can't get into those contours, and the sanding sponge nicely fits and forms to your contour and sands that out. The steel wool is really good for really fine sanding, mainly for like polyurethane finishes, which we'll get into in another video. The final one that I use is my favorite, and it's the power sanding, and my favorite tool in the power sanding is the orbital sander. It is by far my favorite. I start with it, usually end with it, unless of course there's areas that I can't get to. So you can even use a palm sander or a belt sander. The belt sander is really good when you are doing planks on a table. You're able to slide that belt sander up and down where those 2 planks meet, and then you don't have a beveled edge there. It smooths it out real nice. And in conclusion, we have a few general rules of thumb. You're going to always want to clean your piece in between each sanding grit. So if you start out with an 80 grit, you sand your piece, you're going to want to clean that, like wipe it off. You can vacuum it, you can use compressed air, or you can even use a thing called the tack cloth, and that will clean up all of your dust. That way you're not embedding it back into it, creating more scratches. Also, you're going to want to make sure that you sand with the grain, because if you don't, your scratches are going to be very visible, and sanding with the grain hides a lot of those scratches for you. And Just when you think you're finished, take your piece over to a window and inspect it in the daylight, because that's when you're really gonna see how well of a job you did, because it's gonna show you all the other little scratches that you may have missed and you need to go back over it again. Obviously, this is not all inclusive for sanding, but it's just a few of the basics for your average homeowner and doing what you want to do to get that piece of furniture into your house and enjoy it. So that concludes our sanding video, and I hope you guys go and have a great day and happy crafting.